Welcome again, guys, to the Cast Iron Man show, and we are going to be making Italian sausage today in our first installment, kind of like our second installment if you want to count the breakfast sausage making guide as our first piece in our Summer of Dogs series, which is all about cylindrical meat objects on a roll. So join us. So I'm not going to show you guys how to do all the intro steps to making the Italian sausage because they are identical to what you can find in the breakfast sausage making guide. I will come in with the ground pork at the end and just show you what spices I'm going to put in it that will make it characteristic of an Italian sausage rather than that of a breakfast sausage. But what we need for the Italian sausage to sit on is some rolls. So we're going to make rosemary Asiago rolls to accompany this beautiful sausage. Throw your rosemary in the flour and then grab some butter and honey and melt it in a small saucepan on your stove. While the honey and butter are melting together, go grab another small saucepan and begin to pour your milk in. By now, the honey and butter should be about melted, so go ahead and pour it into your cold milk that's in the small to medium saucepan, and then you're going to bring that over to the stove and warm it up to about 95 degrees. Once it's at temp, pour it into another vessel and grab your yeast, which you will then sprinkle on top and mix in with a fork. I'm not a big yeast prover. I act under the idea that the commercial yeast that they sell in the store is pretty robust. So look at this culture we got here. Looks good. Looks good to me. Start your mixer on low speed and pour in your milk, honey, and butter mixture, followed by an egg and one egg yolk. And the scraping will begin after this. You really have to go at it with some recipes. This happened to be one of them. And then I made it the next day and it didn't even come close to looking the same because of the humidity content of the air, I think, and if you could see there how much flour is retained at the bottom even after like 3 or so minutes of mixing. And at this point, when it was super wet, I began to add in the rest of the flour piecemeal so that I finally did get a end weight, which I was happy with in terms of hydration and, overall dough tackiness. This is going to take around 7 to 8 minutes of mixing. I cranked it up at the end just to try to get everything together in one last ditch effort. But what you do before you put it in what you do before you put it in your bowl is turn it out on your countertop and just kind of quickly knead it together. Not super vigorously, but as you guys have seen in some of my other videos, you use the same exact technique that you would with the little balls for a bun or something like that. You just roll the bigger loaf into a circle and draw it together. Cover your dough with plastic wrap and let it sit at room temperature for about an hour or until it is doubled in bulk. If you're in the Northwest Territories, you might have to wait 3 hours. It's so cold in your home, your little cottage. So the dough is ready. You're going to want to punch it down and then roll it out onto your surface and begin to weigh it out. I did 70-gram balls, which we will then eventually make into rolls, but I got I could just wait to count at the end how many, but I'm going to guess 13. I got 13 or 14 rolls out of this. Once you've portioned them all out, you're going to, again, use the same balling technique that takes place with almost every single type of flour, dough, ball type thing. Pinch it together at the bottom, just like a pizza ball, but we haven't done that yet, so I shouldn't mention that. Just like a pizza ball, pinch it at the bottom, and then generating tension on the wood, you're going to want to roll your hand over the top of it until it makes a nice, smooth little ball, and place it on a prepared baking sheet. In this case, I have my silicone mat that my mother thinks is the filthiest thing in the world just because it retains some of the grease from other cooking projects, but it's fine because when you put it in the oven at 400 degrees or 360 degrees in this instance, it kills all the germs anyway, and that's just what we call flavor, baby. I did use some flour at the end to kind of dry them up. They were so wet and the moisture was imparting itself to the cutting board, but it's all good. So just make sure you cover your rolls with another sheet pan or a light tea towel and wait another hour to roll them out into long rolls. In the spirit of rolls, we have a thunderstorm rolling in, and I apologize for letting you in advance. Grab your round balls, and then you're just going to press them down on the countertop and begin elongating them into cylinders. I mean, it's not true, geometrically speaking. I don't know if it's truly a cylinder. It'd be more symmetrical than that, but just press the dough down, pinch it up into itself, and begin to roll them out to a uniform thickness. These babies are going to proof for one more time, and they are going to puff up really nicely and grow together. And so it does, like when you're doing this at home, you might look at it and be like, wow, geez, these look absolutely hideous right now. Just in terms of how imprecise they tend to be, because some of them have different quantities of air in them, and like I just popped a bubble there at the end, you could see. Stack them on your prepared sheet pan about a ½ inch apart, and then you're going to cover them one more time and let them grow together. Wine time again, baby! A little bit of Pinot Noir for these sausages. So, as I've stated earlier in the video, if you need to see how all the steps take place before this final mixing step, just head over to my breakfast sausage guide video. Just change the seasonings as appear in the bottom of this recipe, and you're fine. Just do it exactly the same. We did put a whole head of roasted garlic in there at the initial hand mix, and we are also going to begin to incorporate the other ingredients which would make this characteristic of an Italian sausage with a little flair to it, a little amped up, This is some fancy shit here, boy. Keep mixing, keep incorporating, and you just want to make sure that the wine that you're eventually going to put in is freezing cold. So I had this in the fridge all day, but then I did put it in the freezer for That's why actually it spills, is because it spills when it's really cold. Keep incorporating the cold wine, and this is exactly similar to the step that I performed in the breakfast sausage guide, except with water. Freezing cold water and freezing cold maple syrup. So same thing, just keep mixing. The mixing stage is a little tricky, and if you want to do barehanded, might be able to get the best feel for the tackiness of the fat coming together, but it's honestly so cold that you'll probably feel like you have frostbite after mixing this for about 7, 8, 10 minutes. I mean, really, it's pretty intense. This really reminds me of mixing a loaf of sourdough bread or just a plain classic rustic loaf, because you're just kind of using a pincer movement while folding it over, mixing, squeezing, and you really got to do this a couple times before you have a good feel for it, and you have the consistency that you want, and you're confident that putting it in that sausage press is going to achieve the end result you desire. We are damn near at the end of mixing this and achieving the emulsification and myosin bind that we are looking for. At this point, my fingers are pretty cold. Maybe I could get a pair of cotton barbecue gloves to wear underneath, but it's really not that bad. You could fry up your sausage right now and do a taste test, even though I'm sure you're not going to season it at this point. I was just hungry. Though I'm not going to show the rest of the sausage making process, I did just want to give you guys a glimpse into maybe a trick that'd work, is you just drag a little bit of the sausage mixture out to the end of the tip, and it makes the casing go on much easier. Maybe tangential, but I think it'll help, because with that plastic sausage horn, it's super hard to get the casing on. We need an egg wash if we're going to finish these rolls off. Make sure your oven's set to 360 or 350 if your convection oven actually works well, and bring together the eggs with a dash of milk and begin to top all of your rolls, which we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I actually wasn't even close when I guessed, but that's okay. I really do my best to coat the rolls on all sides so you get a really uniform browning, but mostly it'll drip down anyway. And as you can see, look how nicely they've grown together. So those are going to puff up and have a nice pull-apart hot dog roll. One last thing before they go in the oven is going to be topping them with the Asiago cheese. Plenty of it. This is going to crisp up really nice towards the end of the cook. And your entire house is going to smell like Asiago cheese. So don't say I didn't warn you. But it's not a bad thing. For me, 25 minutes later, these are done. And look at that. See how nice and dry and crispy that cheese has gotten on top? And it just has a really beautiful aroma combined with the rosemary and the yeast. It's just absolutely excellent. You actually, if you want to cut these right, you have to use the crappy Costco bread knife you had when you were in college that still follows you to this day. And look at that. Nice, springy, beautiful, terrifically scented roll. And I just do a side cut on these. I think it works the best. You can do a top slice if you want, but not for me. Look at that. Nice spring to it. Beautiful structure on the bread. Wish I could create some structure in my life, but alas. What's up, guys? We're headed out, going on this big camping trip. It's good to get out of the house. It's great that the campgrounds have opened back up, and just really pumped. It's good to get away from it all, from the whole area, and it's going to be a nice relief. So I'll see you guys in a little while at the campground. Yeah, the campground's right by my house. It's so funny. Great joke. I tried. All right, here we are. Cast iron skillet, right? Sausage and peppers in and onions in a non-reusable plastic bag. I took a leak in it later. No, I didn't do that. But you know, why not cook it over the open fire? Look at this beautiful campground, beautiful skillets, flames licking the sides, nice little crust on the outside. We are going to have a pretty wonderful campfire meal here tonight, guys. And if you can get out of the house and cook these babies in a park or something like that, then do that. Have my rolls ready to go in the foil, just going to warm them on the side of the grill. And our sausages are done, guys. And as you saw in the beginning, they look pretty good. So thank you for joining me, guys, and hopefully I'll see you next time in our Summer of Dogs series, and be well.